You know that feeling? The one where worries just sort of gather like shadows almost right at the edge of your mind. It's like this constant background hum of anxiety, a sense of unease that just tags along through the day.
Yes, that sense of being shadowed. It's deeply human, isn't it?
It really is. And, thinking about the insights we're exploring today, it's fascinating how different ways of looking at it, some ancient, some more modern, they all seem to offer these gentle ways, paths maybe, to understand those shadows, maybe even soften them.
Indeed. Gentle pathways. It's a lovely way to put it. Towards understanding, yes,
Yeah.
and perhaps relating differently to them.
Exactly. So today we're going to dive into three main ideas that really stood out, but not like strict rules, more like gentle shifts in attention.
Invitations, perhaps.
Yeah, invitations. I like that. So we'll look at the power of being really present, mindfulness, then the wisdom in accepting that everything changes, that impermanence idea. Right, Annika.
And finally, the freedom that can come from, well, letting go of needing to control everything. It feels like quite a big shift, doesn't it?
It is a profound shift,
Yeah.
really. And maybe it's helpful to remember as we talk, the aim isn't really to, banish fear completely. That might not even be possible.
Right.
It's more about cultivating a different relationship with it.
Yeah.
One based on understanding, maybe curiosity, rather than just resistance.
Okay. So let's start with mindfulness. One thing that really struck me was that story of Siddhartha Gautama under the Bodhi tree. The encounter with Mara. Ah, yes, Mara, the embodiment of fear, of doubt, of all those inner obstacles.
Exactly. And what got me was the Buddha's response. It wasn't a fight, it wasn't running away, it was just this calm acknowledgement, like, I see you. Simple as that.
That stillness is key, isn't it? In that moment, there's no struggle, just a direct seeing, a recognition of what's present. Fear is there, yes, but it's met without judgment, without adding fuel to it. It's quite a radical acceptance.
It really flips our usual reaction on its head. Usually the first instinct is push away, resist,
Fight or flight.
Yeah. So how do we translate that, that ancient wisdom into our lives today when it's not some mythical demon, but maybe just anxiety about a presentation or relationship worries or just the general uncertainty of things?
Well, if we look at mindfulness more broadly, it's about cultivating that exact same quality, that non-judgmental awareness, but in our ordinary moments.
Okay.
So just as the Buddha acknowledged Mara, we can learn to acknowledge our own fear when it arises, to observe the thought, the feeling, without immediately getting swept up in its story.
So not getting lost in the what ifs.
Precisely. And it's interesting, modern psychology really echoes this now. Studies show how this kind of present moment awareness can actually reduce anxiety. It
Yeah.
helps us step back, see thoughts as thoughts, rather than identifying completely with them.
It's like creating a little bit of space, isn't it, between the feeling itself and our knee-jerk reaction to it. But when fear feels so physical, so overwhelming sometimes, how do we actually create that space? There were some really practical starting points mentioned.
Yes, and their value lies in their simplicity. You don't need anything elaborate. Starting small, maybe just 5 minutes a day, focusing on the breath, that can be incredibly grounding.
It's just breathing.
Just breathing.
Yeah.
Intentionally feeling the breath move in and out, the rise and fall. It anchors you right here, right now, especially when the mind wants to spin off into worry.
And I found that idea of labeling thoughts really useful too. Like when that wave of fear comes, to just mentally know, this is fear, or fear is here.
Acknowledging its presence.
Yeah, and then gently letting it drift by, like watching clouds, not needing to grab onto it or analyze it to death right then and there.
Exactly. It's recognizing it as a temporary mental event, not some absolute fixed truth about reality or about you. And engaging the senses too.
Yeah.
That's another powerful anchor.
Like noticing sounds or textures.
Yes. What can you hear right now? What does the chair feel like? What taste is in your mouth? Anything that pulls you out of the mental chatter and into direct present experience.
There was that example too of Sarah, the entrepreneur, dealing with imposter syndrome, feeling that fear during pitches.
Yes, a very relatable struggle.
And it was insightful how even those small mindful acts like taking a deep breath beforehand, maybe visualizing calm, just refocusing when the fear bubbled up, how that helped her navigate it. It wasn't that the fear vanished overnight,
No, rarely does it vanish completely, especially at first.
but she chose to meet it differently, with awareness. And that seemed to be the start of the transformation.
Sarah's story highlights it beautifully.
Yeah.
Mindfulness isn't about eradicating fear, but about empowering us, changing our relationship to it. And it takes courage, doesn't it, to turn towards the feeling instead of away.
It really does. Which I guess brings up the question, why does fear feel so incredibly real, so powerful? There were mentions of both the psychological side and the Buddhist perspective on this.
Yes. Psychologically, we have the amygdala, the brain's sort of alarm system, triggering that fight or flight response. It's a survival mechanism, deeply wired.
Right, the primal brain kicking in.
And it can get triggered even by perceived threats, not just actual physical danger. But the Buddhist understanding adds another layer. It points towards attachment as a fundamental root of fear.
Attachment, let's unpack that a bit. Attachment to outcomes, to who we think we are, to things. How does that create the conditions for fear?
Well, think about it. If we're deeply attached to a specific outcome, say getting that promotion or having a relationship stay exactly as it is,
Okay.
then the possibility of not getting the promotion or the relationship changing, that possibility immediately breeds fear, doesn't it? Fear of loss, fear of failure.
Right, because you're clinging to that specific result.
Precisely. Or if our identity is wrapped up in being the successful one, then anything that threatens that image triggers fear. Attachment creates these points of vulnerability, places where fear can take root and flourish.
So mindfulness then, it helps us gently loosen that grip. Not by becoming cold or detached, but
Through compassionate awareness, yes.
yeah.
We learn to observe the fear arising, maybe connected to an attachment, without being completely defined by it. We start to see it as an experience passing through us, rather than the totality of who we are.
Like recognizing it as a visitor, a temporary one.
The temporary visitor, exactly. It might be loud, it might be persistent for a while, but it's not the owner of the house. Realizing its impermanent nature, that it doesn't define our core worth. That's incredibly freeing.
That image you used earlier, fear being like a shadow needing light to exist, that's sticking with me. And the idea that challenges, the difficult stuff, can actually be where growth happens.
Turning towards the difficulty with awareness.
And learning to sort of dance with the shadows, using mindfulness to transform the fear, maybe even find energy in it. And that other piece too, self-compassion, meeting our own fear with kindness.
Yes. Self-compassion is crucial. Treating ourselves with the same gentle understanding we might offer a friend who is afraid. That kindness itself softens the fear, lessens its grip. It acts like a balm.
So we've started shining a light with mindfulness. Now let's move to that second idea. Embracing impermanence. You described life like a flowing river, always moving, impossible to hold on to.
Yes, the constant flux.
And it really highlights how much of our fear, especially fear of loss, fear of uncertainty, comes from resisting that natural flow, doesn't it?
It does. We crave stability, permanence, in a world that is fundamentally changing moment to moment. And that inherent resistance to anicca, to the way things actually are, is a deep source of unease, of dukkha, or suffering.
There was that parable too, the one about the monk and the poisonous snake.
Yes. A powerful teaching story.
He sees the snake, feels fear initially, right? But then instead of reacting wildly, he just observes it, accepts its presence, realizes it's only a threat if he disturbs it, if he resists its being there.
Exactly. And if we apply that inwardly, it shows how often fear escalates not because of the situation itself, but because of our internal resistance to the situation. The monk's calm acceptance transformed the encounter.
It really makes you think how often we feed our own fear by trying to fight or control things that are just changing, that are inherently uncontrollable. But how do we really internalize this idea that everything is temporary? Especially when things are really tough, like losing someone or a major setback. It feels almost dismissive sometimes to just say it's temporary.
That's a very important point. It's not about dismissing the pain or the difficulty. And again, this understanding of impermanence isn't just an intellectual concept you agree with. It's a deeper felt sense that develops over time.
Okay.
It's recognizing that all experiences, joy, sorrow, success, failure, health, illness, are part of this flow. They arise, they stay for a while, and they pass. Even fear itself follows this pattern. Understanding this doesn't erase the pain, but it can create a kind of spaciousness around it. It lessens the feeling of being trapped forever in a difficult state.
The analogy of life as a flickering candle flame. It sounds a bit fragile, maybe even morbid at first.
It can seem that way.
But the point isn't negativity, is it? It's more like a reminder to cherish this moment because it won't last forever.
Exactly. It's an invitation to engage fully with life as it is right now. And also to approach challenges with resilience, knowing that they too are subject to change. This too shall pass. It fosters a trust that we can navigate the changes.
And it's interesting how this ancient idea connects with modern concepts too, like Psychological flexibility, being adaptable.
Yes, very much so. Psychological flexibility is essentially that capacity to stay present and adapt our thoughts and behaviors effectively, even when facing difficult situations or changing circumstances. People who cultivate this tend to handle stress better. Think of innovators, like maybe Elon Musk, constantly adapting to uncertain markets, or athletes navigating wins and losses. Embracing change fosters well-being.
So it's less about being rigid and trying to hold everything steady and more about being like a willow tree, bending with the wind instead of snapping.
A beautiful image, yes.
Yeah.
Cultivating that inner suppleness. And there was that practical technique mentioned too, the 5 breaths. For those moments when you feel really overwhelmed by change or uncertainty.
Right. That seemed really accessible.
It is. The simplicity is its strength. Just pausing, taking 5 slow, conscious breaths, maybe inhaling for 4 counts, holding gently for 4, exhaling slowly for 6, repeating that 5 times.
Okay.
And as you breathe, gently reminding yourself, this moment is temporary. This feeling will pass. It's a mini meditation, a way to anchor yourself and interrupt that spiral of fear about the future. Then you can act from a place of greater clarity, focusing on what you can actually do right now.
And that personal story shared about the career setback, how remembering impermanence helps shift the view from this is total defeat to, okay, this is a change, maybe a learning opportunity. That makes it feel more real.
Yes, it's about reframing. Setbacks are painful, no doubt, but seeing them not as permanent endpoints, but as turns in the river, part of the ongoing journey. That changes everything. They often carry hidden lessons or redirect us in unexpected ways.
It's just so easy to get caught up in resisting change, isn't it? Clinging to the familiar.
It feels safer initially.
Yeah, but that resistance, as you said, creates tension, that dukkha, that gap between how things are and how we desperately want them to be. Acceptance, on the other hand, brings a kind of ease, a softening.
Yes, and letting go of that need for things to stay the same actually opens us up.
Yeah.
It creates space for new possibilities we couldn't have imagined while we were busy resisting. It fosters trust.
And the practical tips for cultivating that acceptance. Things like letting go of perfectionism, that's a big one for many people.
Accepting mistakes is learning.
Simplifying goals, focusing on the actions we can take, and cultivating gratitude, shifting focus from what's missing or changing to what is present and good right now.
These are all ways to gently steer our attention away from the uncontrollable future toward the present moment where our influence actually lies. They build a foundation of acceptance.
That image of the flowing river, learning to let go and float sometimes instead of always swimming upstream, embracing the dance. It's a really powerful metaphor for this whole idea.
It is. Trusting the current, learning its rhythms.
Which leads us perfectly into the third core lesson, letting go of control. The material started with that image of ocean waves. Powerful, crashing, but ultimately just dissolving back. You can't hold on to a wave.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Yet we try, don't we? Metaphorically speaking.
We really do. There's this deep human tendency to try and manage everything, control outcomes, control how others feel, control our own feelings even. And it's exhausting.
Deeply exhausting. Because fundamentally, much of life is inherently uncontrollable. This desire for control, while understandable, is often based on an illusion.
And the idea that real freedom comes from surrendering that illusion, trusting life's rhythm. It sounds almost passive, but the implication is that it's actually empowering.
It feels paradoxical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, by releasing the exhausting effort of trying to force things, we free up so much energy. And paradoxically, we often gain more influence over the one thing we truly can cultivate, our own inner state, our peace, our resilience.
There was the story of Ananda, Buddha's disciple, struggling with self-doubt. That felt very human.
Very human. Even close disciples face these inner battles.
And the Buddha's analogy of the farmer planting seeds. The farmer does their part, prepares the soil, plants, waters, protects. But they can't force the seed to grow faster or guarantee the harvest. They trust the process. They allow nature to do its part.
It's such a gentle and wise teaching. We can create the conditions for growth in ourselves. Practice mindfulness, cultivate compassion, seek wisdom. But the unfolding happens in its own time, according to its own natural laws. We allow, we nurture, we trust.
That's really comforting, actually, especially when you feel impatient with yourself, you know? Why aren't I there yet?
It relieves that pressure of needing to force transformation. And this relates to the concept of Dhamma, the natural order of things, the way reality functions. Suffering, dukkha, again, often arises when we fight against this natural order, when we cling to expectations that don't align with how things truly are. Letting go of control is about aligning ourselves with that flow.
Like a sailboat, adjusting the sails to catch the wind rather than trying to blow against it.
Precisely. Working with the conditions, not against them.
And the link back to fear seems so direct here. Fear often comes from wanting to control things, right? Wanting guarantees, wanting certainty where there is none.
Yes, attachment to control fuels fear.
So surrender, in this sense, isn't giving up. It's more like transforming that anxious, controlling energy into trust.
Exactly. Trust in the process, trust in our ability to navigate whatever comes. And when we act from that place of trust, rather than desperation or control, our actions tend to be lighter, clearer, often more effective.
And again, it's interesting how modern psychology is catching up, talking about non-attachment, how letting go of rigid attachment to outcomes is linked to less stress, less anxiety, more happiness.
hmm It's consistently shown. Think of athletes focusing on their performance, the process, rather than only the win, like Serena Williams often spoke about. Or entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos being willing to constantly pivot and let go of old models. There's power in non-attachment, in focusing on what you can influence, your effort, your mindset.
There was that intriguing practical exercise mentioned too, writing a letter to your fear.
Ah, yes. Giving it form.
It sounds a bit unusual, but I can see how actually addressing it, acknowledging it directly on paper without judgment, how that could be powerful.
Personifying it can help create that crucial space we talked about earlier. It externalizes it slightly, allows you to relate to it rather than just be it.
And then the symbolic release,
Mm.
setting it aside or even burning it safely, a ritual to signify letting go.
Precisely. Rituals can be powerful anchors for intention. It's a way of telling yourself, I see you fear, I acknowledge your message, but I am choosing not to let you steer the ship right now.
And that personal story about the solo trip, watching leaves float on a lake.
Yes, simple moments often hold profound lessons.
That realization of choosing to float rather than struggle, and how focusing on small actions aligned with values, just taking the next right step without needing to control the whole journey, led to unexpected beauty. That really resonated.
It's often in those moments of quiet observation, of letting go, that clarity arises. We see we don't need to fight so hard.
But still, that feeling of control is just so alluring, isn't it? Even knowing its limits. Why do we cling to it so tightly?
Well, fundamentally it feels safe. Or rather, it promises safety in a world that often feels uncertain, unpredictable. Control feels like protection.
Yeah, like building walls.
Exactly. But the paradox is, the tighter we cling, the more rigid we become, the less secure we often are in the long run. Because life is unpredictable. The rigid tree snaps in the storm.
Or well, the flexible one bends.
Right.
Here.
So cultivating flexibility, trust, acceptance, that's where true resilience lies. Not in rigid control, but in adaptability.
And those practical steps for building trust in the flow. Mindful decision-making, acting from that deeper alignment rather than just fear. Focusing on the process, celebrating the small steps. Having rituals for release, like journaling or meditation. And even counterintuitively, cultivating gratitude for uncertainty, seeing it as a space for growth.
It's a radical reframe, isn't it? To see uncertainty not just as a threat, but as the space where potential unfolds. These practices, done consistently, build that inner foundation of trust. It might feel awkward at first, unfamiliar.
Like learning a new skill.
Exactly. But gradually, it strengthens our capacity to navigate life's currents with more grace and less fear.
So as we kind of draw this exploration together, I keep coming back to that image of the river. It feels like the thread connecting these three lessons: mindfulness, impermanence, letting go of control.
Awareness of the flow, acceptance of the flow, trusting the flow.
It just feels like a more peaceful, more sustainable way to be in the world, doesn't it? Instead of constantly fighting the current.
It is. It's about finding our place within the flow, recognizing we're part of it, not separate from it, trying to direct it all. There's a deep ease available in that recognition.
And that final thought, you are not the captain, but the tide's quiet ride. Wow, that's quite something.
It captures it beautifully, I think. The essence of surrender, of trust, of aligning with something larger than our own striving will.
So for everyone listening, maybe just let these ideas settle, gently reflect on them in your own experience. Perhaps try one of the practical exercises we talked about.
No pressure, just gentle exploration.
Yeah, remembering that cultivating this awareness, embracing change, letting go, it's not a one-time fix, is it? It's an ongoing practice, a path.
A lifelong path, perhaps.
Yeah.
For greater peace, greater freedom from those shadows.
And maybe just be kind to yourself along the way. It's a journey, like you said.
Absolutely. Patience, kindness, and gentle persistence. Each small moment of awareness, each breath taken consciously, each act of letting go, it all matters. It all contributes to that deeper understanding and ease.